Good morning. Denise Dryden here. I'm out on Bainbridge Island and it was pouring down rain, so I'm sort of rigging up something under the roof so you can see what it's like outside and still hear the birds. It's beautiful. It's July 1st. We're going into a long weekend, or we're going into a long week of play after a weekend. And today I wanted to talk about fear. I've had a conversation with fear with several of my clients over this last week, and I thought this was the perfect topic to bring up for today. Because fear is, it's what happens around us. It's what happens when we think about our jobs, when we think about our children, when we think about our health. And, take a minute and think, well, where does fear come up for you? What is sort of, what would you define? What would you think of when you think of fear? So to begin with, let's break down what fear is. I want to start first with the Hermetic principles, and we've mentioned these a couple times before. We've talked about this. One of the principles is that everything in the universe is energy. Everything is energy. It's alive and it's aware. Number two, everything is connected. So all of these little pieces of energy are connected to one another. And number three, they're all in relationship to each other. In other words, if we can see little imaginary spider webs of all of these atoms interconnected, we would see how they dance together, how they influence each other. And the reason I'm talking about energy is that emotions are defined as energy in motion. So what happens is energy sort of comes across, we pick it up, and we go, oh, and then we put a context onto it with our head from a belief system, from something that we've experienced before or something we've been taught. So I want to define fear through the dictionary as an unpleasant, strong emotion caused by a belief that someone or something is likely to cause pain or threat to you, or to the people you love, or to the things that matter to you. It means that there's a warning of danger. It's the anticipation or awareness of danger. So fear can be real, but it can also be imagined. And our bodies don't know the difference. And I know none of this is new material, but let's start to put all of these together into this form where we can start to play with it a little bit differently, okay? So if fear is real or imagined and our body doesn't know the difference, then we feel this wave of emotion that goes by. Could be ours, could be somebody else's, could be a sound, could be lightning, it could be a rumor you heard at the office, it could be anything. And this wave of emotion goes through you, and we put it into context and we believe it. And we create this physiological response. The physiological response comes from our sympathetic and our parasympathetic, right? So our sympathetic goes into whoosh, be afraid, be really afraid. And then we start dropping cortisol, we go into fight or flight or freeze, and we're in reaction. And when we're in reaction, we either step forward and we make a response like, oh, this is what I need to do. Like if you're a goalkeeper and a player is coming towards you, whoosh, this is what I have to do. I have to go out and stop that ball. Cortisol and fight or flight and our reaction to fear is normal when there's a real danger, right? Or a real threat of somebody coming up against us in a competitive situation, or even in a safety situation. But what happens when it's not really danger and our body's just sort of simmering under this pressure of, I can feel fear, I can feel fear, I can feel fear. So I want to sort of segue just over to something really quick, which is fear, and it's this other emotion, doubt, are the most destructive energies we have on our planet. Fear and doubt. Because fear and doubt are something that we can perceive in our head and start to feel it in our physiology, right? So fear is a common method to maintain control or motivation. Fear has been used to help us motivate us in school. Fear of grades, fear of the societal norms, fear of expectations, school performance, fear of bullies, men or women, children being mean to each other, threatening your lunch money, threatening your spot in school, threatening your place on a team, threatening your job. Fear is a common motivator or control in sports, in politics, in social status. Fear exists in our livelihoods, in money. What if I lose my job? What if I've overextended on this house purchase? What if I'm one health issue away from having a serious problem? These are all fears we carry around in our body, and they start to eat at us after a while, and they show up as dis-ease. That means that there's no ease in the body, so there's nothing but the presence of fear. So anyone can manage these low level of fears, kind of like the frog in the boiling frog in the hot water. You know, the water starts cold, and the frog doesn't realize that it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and yet it has a dramatic impact on its life. So if it's a slow, steady level, we can become numb to it. And we can just sort of go, yeah, that's the way it is, until something ramps up or changes, whether it's a new person who arrives at a job and shakes things up, or a new strategy, or we start losing a series of games, if we're in the competitive, really attached to competitive sports. Or the example that I work with all the time is when a child starts failing at school, or floundering, or struggling, or turning to substances because life is really hard, and parents get gripped with fear. Now, I want to also add this little tiny piece that highly sensitive people, HSPs, and empaths can feel fear, and they can feel that steady pressure. And that steady pressure almost overwhelms on a consistent basis, especially if anything else comes into it. Loud noises, tactical stuff, emotional pressures. It's that homeostasis of being able to sort of numb out and balance it is really hard if you're an HSP or an empath. So what we know is that when we're in fear, we're afraid, there's a level of panic, we can get overloaded really easily. We have this physiology of worry and pressure, and that the limits that this puts on our ability to put it into context and really understand it is limited. So it's almost like we sort of shut down and we stop participating in all the skills we know because fear starts becoming bigger. And that can happen when something's going on in our job. When a student gets kicked out of class, or we're on the 4th day in a row where a kiddo will not get out of bed and go to school, and we have a flat out refusal. And it's like, I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is getting worse. So it could also be a relationship in our marriage. It can be finding out that something's not working, but we begin to hold on to it inside, and then we attach fear, and then we go to worry, right? And worry is just a prayer you send out to the universe for what you don't want. Oh please don't make this happen. Please don't make this happen. Please don't. I don't know what to do about him. And next thing you know, you're creating all of that because form follows thought, right? So what do we do when fear creeps in or is purposely created in our lives by people who like to manipulate or motivate or just flat out control? Well, the first thing to do is recognize that the presence of fear is in your body when you can feel fight, flight, or freeze. And fight, or freeze are going to show up in some sort of physiological section. So find out where it is and recognize it. And then meet it with compassion, like you would a small child. This is when we learn, this is when all that dialogue about, self-compassion and love your inner child, I think this is what we're talking about is, drop into, oh man, something's really going on. What's going on? And if we can be kind to our children and our grandchildren and to young kids all over the world, why can't we be kind to ourselves? Oh, something's going on. I can feel it. And then gently and nurturing it, sort of go like, what do we need to do? Let's breathe deeper. Let's breathe into our body and calm our systems down. When we can calm our systems down, we can relax. Once we're calm, we can start to notice again and breathe. We start to notice all the gaps in between things. We get to see who's actually causing all of this. What's the source of this? And we can come at things from a very rational and very intuitive place once we're calm. Because that's that calmness, which is really our superpower. We can see everything when we're calm. And I often wonder if it's not part of our cultural manipulation is to keep us in a state of uncalm. And if that's the case, how do we sort of combat that and come up with calm and let calm be something that we learn how to do for ourselves? Makes sense. So once we can see everything, and the term is that we notice everything in our environment and we start to collect data like, oh, everything changed in the office when this person started power brokering. Everything changed in my child's school when they started working with this teacher who puts a lot of pressure on kids. And we start to see what we couldn't see before because we were in fear. We were in worry. We were feeling pressure inside of our body. When we can sort of see all of that, we can shift almost into a slow motion, which is now I know what the path is, and I have more confidence in moving forward. So when we calm down our sympathetic system, we are no longer pushed into reaction, into fear, and we begin to embody my favorite skill of the feminine, which is responsiveness. I see this and I don't have to take it. It's like all those movies that came out about 10 years ago. They showed it also in The Matrix, where you can slow down everything and even watch items go flying past you in slow motion. This is how powerful we are when we're calm. You know, I'm a historian, so I'm always going to bring something in if I can. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States during World War II, has this beautiful quote, which is, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Once we realize that fear is a context that we can manage, that we can self-soothe, that we can control ourselves, we are fearless. We are able to believe that nothing can impact us the same way. So I'm going to be here always to motivate you to step out of fear. So this is what I do as a coach. If you're interested in talking with me or finding out a little bit more about what I do or watching more of these videos, you can find me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com. And have a great Sunday. Have a great 4th of July. And take care of yourself out there. If it gets a little too loud and a little too crazy. Take care. Bye-bye.